Good evening and Happy New Year. On behalf of Gateway Medical Society, I am pleased to welcome you to our first virtual symposium installment for 2023. I am Dr. Lisa Isaac, President of Gateway Medical Society. Gateway Medical Society was established in Pittsburgh in 1963 and is a component of the National Medical Association. Our mission is to eradicate healthcare disparities. For the past couple of years, most of our attention has been devoted to COVID-19 related issues. And while COVID-19 is still here with us, it is refreshing to branch out into some other different topics this year. Tonight, Gateway Medical Society and the Pittsburgh Black Nurses in Action, in collaboration with Dementia 360, are pleased to present the first in a six-part series for dementia for dementia for family caregivers. There are several different types of dementia with multiple different causes. While it is not a normal process of aging, over half of persons over 85 are diagnosed with some form of dementia. And between the patients and the caregivers, dementia affects the lives of just about everyone at some point in time. Well, we are going to learn a lot about it during this series, beginning tonight with the topic, Dementia Basics and Your Role as Family Caregiver. We have a distinguished panel and a dynamic facilitator and knowledgeable guests. I will introduce the facilitator who will in turn introduce the remaining panelists. Before we get started, I'd like to once again thank our partners in this endeavor, Pittsburgh Black Nurses in Action and Dementia 360. And now it's my pleasure to introduce the facilitator for this evening, Michelle Carter. And I need just 1 second to bring up my notes. Forgive me for the pause. Okay. Michelle has been in the nursing field over 25 years. She graduated from community college with an RN, attended California University of Pennsylvania for BSN, and Aspen University for a master's degree in nursing administration and management. Michelle's practice experience is in long-term care. She has served as director of nursing at Longwood at Oakmont for the past 5 years. She is a certified dementia practitioner and certified director in long-term care. Michelle is a member of the Pittsburgh Black Nurses in Action, the Black Nurses Association, and the Pennsylvania Director of Nursing Association. She is the newly elected historian of Pittsburgh Black Nurses in Action and has served on many committees and participated in several outreach programs. Michelle is also the co-chair of a monthly Zoom called, I believe it's called Talks About Tuesdays for Pittsburgh Black Nurses in Action. I am pleased to present Michelle Carter, our facilitator for this evening. Welcome, Michelle.
Thank you, Dr. Isaac. I'm very pleased to be here. I'm pleased to be here, and I just want to give you a brief description of what our program is about. Dementia 360 is a new comprehensive care management program designed to alleviate the burden of caregivers and supporting loved ones in their home that's living with dementia. The goal of the program is to be all-inclusive for everyone, and the Dementia 360 recognize an opportunity where they can help an underserved population for the program. They're here to help with coaching, education, and strategies to improve the life of both the dementia patient and also the caregiver. Let's do some housekeeping today. So our housekeeping today is the webinar is muted, and we will be also having a question and answer session at the end of the webinar. You can put your questions into the chat as we go through the slides. At the end of the webinar, we'll have some time, about 10 minutes to answer some questions at the end of the slides. The webinar is also being recorded from the Gateway Medical Society website. You'll be able to go and visit it later on at the Gateway Medical Society, maybe a week after each session. We have two speakers tonight. One of our speakers is Amy Kowalski, And Amy is a registered dietitian nutritionist and also a certified dementia practitioner. She is the executive director of Dementia 360. Amy has years of professional experience in many different areas of healthcare. She has worked in gerontology, dementia care, healthcare quality improvement, and nutrition. She has led and been part of task force to redesign work processes, improving outcomes, safety, and patient satisfaction in hospitals and long-term care, and also with interdisciplinary groups. However, when she and her mother became caregivers of her grandmother, who was living with dementia, Amy realized that there was very little support in our healthcare systems to support families that are taking care of dementia family members who are on the front line taking care of their family members. She changed her career and devoted herself to improving quality of care and quality of life for people living with dementia and their family and caregivers. She also teaches with the program with Dementia 360 through education, coaching, and help navigate their journey through their disease process of dementia and Alzheimer's. Our next speaker will be Stacy Stahl. She has a master's degree in education, and she's also a certified dementia practitioner. And Stacy is the Dementia 360's educator. So when Stacy was in college, her maternal grandmother, Emma, developed dementia and moved in with the family. She watched her mother struggle to care for Emma and also work full-time, running a household and raising her children. She knew the toll that brought physically and emotionally on the family caring for a loved one with dementia. 37 years later, Stacy found herself caring for her own beloved mother who had dementia. After retiring from a 30-year career in medical and behavioral health research, Stacy reached out to Dementia 360. She began her journey at Dementia 360 with giving support, being a volunteer, and now she became the staff member. And she's the educator for their program. Stacy has found her post-retirement mission where she can apply her expertise and her experience as a researcher and an educator and can continue her own learning and satisfy her desire to help other families and through their journey of dementia care. Stacy will be our first presenter today, and I would like to turn it over to Stacy Stahl.
Thank you so much, Michelle. Good evening, everybody. Glad to have you here with us for our first evening together. This series has been created especially for family caregivers of people living with dementia, because we know life doesn't prepare anyone to be a dementia family caregiver. So we're here to help you with that. Over the next 12 weeks, we have 6 different presentations planned to help you learn more about dementia and how to make your caregiving journey a little easier. We'll also have opportunities for you to call in for a one-on-one coaching to work on specific challenges that you're dealing with at home. We have found this combination of teaching and one-on-one coaching works really well for families. So we hope that it will help you in your journey as well. Okay, you could change the slide.
Wait a minute, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
That's not changing for me.
Oh,
let me stop it
there we
real
go.
quick.
We're good.
Did it change? I'm sorry.
Yeah, it did. Yeah,
Just took a little longer. Sorry about that.
it's okay.
Technology. Okay, there we go. Is that right?
Can you go 1 back, 2 back? There we go. That's it. Here is a list of the 6-part education series for dementia caregivers, along with the dates that are going to be offered. Our presentations will be every other Wednesday from 7 to 8 p.m. And each session is going to be a different topic. And the entire series contains what we consider to be the most important information for you as a caregiver to know. And we hope that you'll be able to register and attend all of the sessions. Okay, let's move to the next one, Michelle.
Mhm.
Thanks. All right, and on the off weeks, the weeks in between the presentations, we'll be offering 30-minute telephone coaching sessions on Wednesdays from 7 in the morning till 5 p.m. The dates and the phone numbers to call are listed on this slide. So the webinars will help you get the educational information that you need to know. Then you can use the coaching sessions to talk with one of our dementia experts on how to apply what you're learning at home to overcome the challenges and make days better. Okay, next slide, Michelle. All right, one more. Oops, I can't hear you. You're muted, Michelle.
For some reason, it wasn't moving. I
Wasn't
apologize.
going. Oh, no,
Yeah,
that's
I
okay.
apologize for that.
I know these things are tricky.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh, goodness. That's not. So sorry.
It's okay. I don't think I need this much information on this one. I'll just let you know. We wanted to let you know that we'll be mailing you out a workbook that will give you the information from the 6 different sessions, because we hope this information will come in handy for you in the future and you might want to refer back to it. You got it. Thanks.
Okay.
We also want to learn from you, the caregivers, about what you're experiencing and whether this series is helpful to you. So we'd like you to fill out a short survey. It's just about 10 questions at the start of the series, and then again at the end of the 12 weeks, and ask that it asks you a few questions about your caregiving journey and the series overall. So if you would like to, we'll put a link to the survey into the chat at the end of the webinar, and then we'll also mail you a copy of the survey out along with the workbook that we're sending to you. So if you'd like to be entered, we're also going to have a raffle for Target gift cards to help you carry out the survey, because we know that it's valuable time that you're giving up. And if you can return the first survey before the next educational session, and if you're able to give us your name and phone number so that we can call you if you're one of our raffle winners. Okay, let's get started by answering this question. What is dementia? Next slide.
For some reason, I have to go in and out. I don't know.
They're
why
not
it's doing
advancing, huh? Yeah.
that. No,
Never works out the way you think it's going to.
I know.
No.
Okay, we'll get it there.
Okay. The most common question we're asked is, what is the difference between Alzheimer's and dementia? Dementia is really an umbrella term. There are many types of dementia. Alzheimer's, vascular, Lewy body, frontotemporal are specific types of dementia, just to name a few. What thought comes to mind for you when I say the word dementia? Most people think of memory loss, and that is part of it, but it also affects people's thinking, judgment, reasoning, and language abilities. And it is significant enough to interfere with a person's daily living, and especially for eventually their ability to take care of themselves. It's the fact that the disease interferes with the person's daily life and the ability to care for themselves that makes it different from normal aging. Not everyone receives a diagnosis or knows the specific type of dementia that they have, and that's okay. Dementia involves damage to the nerve cells in the brain, which can occur in multiple areas of the brain. That's why each dementia looks different on each different person. And finally, dementia progresses, or it gets worse over time, and eventually it is fatal. Currently, there's no cure for dementia. Okay, Michelle, next slide.
I think what happens when it sits there, it kind of gets stuck. So we will.
Yeah.
I know the way to slides are going, I'll just maneuver them that way. Here we go. Got it.
As soon as you close it and open it again, it restarts, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. All right, this next slide will show you pictures to answer the question, why do people with dementia struggle so? As you can see, with some diseases, you see changes on the outside of the person. With dementia, the changes are all on the inside of their brain. These changes are responsible for why they do what they do. In a normal brain, the one there on the left, it weighs about 3 pounds. In advanced Alzheimer's, it may shrink to 1.5 pounds, about half that size. A brain that looks like the one on the right is not going to be able to work like the one on the left. This is why they think and act differently and why they have trouble making good decisions and remembering things. So the next time you think, are they just doing this to be difficult? I want you to stop and say to yourself, he or she is not giving you a hard time. They are having a hard time. We hope that as you understand how dementia affects the senses and feelings and processing, that it'll give you a better understanding of why your family member does what they do. Okay, next slide.
Yep. I think it just does that. I'm going to see if I could.
That's okay. I'll just keep going and we'll catch up eventually. Dementia affects all 5 of the senses. For folks living with dementia, their sight is narrowed by tunnel vision, only being able to see what's right in front of them. They also have trouble with depth perception. So 3D objects start to look flat. It can make things like walking down steps or getting off up and down off of curbs very scary. Their hearing is affected as well, but not so much their hearing as the processing of the sound is the problem. So they don't need you to talk louder. They need you to talk more slowly. They may be saying what, like they can't hear you, but it's really that they just can't keep up with what you're telling them. Also, they can become very sensitive to loud noise, which can cause anxiety and fear and a feeling of overstimulation. Their touch is affected. They lose their fine motor skills. It affects a lot of their self-care activities, like being able to button buttons on a shirt. Also, they may be in pain, but they may not be able to recognize it or be able to communicate it. So they may not realize when something is too hot, like shower water, or too cold, like being outside in the winter without their shoes on. Taste is also affected. Their taste buds may be less sensitive, so food doesn't taste as good. And this could cause them to have a less of a desire to eat. Also, remembering that I need to eat or that I just ate can be challenging. So a person with dementia who lives by themselves might forget to eat a meal because they just didn't get hungry. Or maybe your husband may forget that he just had lunch and ask for it again and again. Their sense of smell can be affected. It can either be increased or decreased. This connects to their hunger, but also to their hygiene. They may not realize that they have body odor to be able to recognize a need for bathing. Or they may have an accident and not be able to realize it because the smell doesn't register in their brain as to what that is. Next slide, please. Dementia also impacts how a person thinks and how they process feelings. Their reasoning ability and their judgment are affected. They can no longer use facts to make decisions. It causes causes trouble with their problem-solving abilities. They no longer understand how their decisions can impact others. They may act impulsively and start talking to strangers like they know them. Their attention is more limited. It's harder for them to focus and stay focused. It's harder to do tasks with multiple steps like brushing their teeth. It's helpful in things like that when you're trying to lead them how to do these things, to break down these processes into smaller, simpler steps for them to be able to follow you. They may get lost in conversation, and they may forget or mix up names of people or objects. Their emotions change too. Their moods and their feelings become harder to control. They may overreact or react irrationally. As a caregiver, when your family member is acting out of the ordinary, many people wonder if their family member is acting this way on purpose. The truth is, what you're experiencing is more likely a result of the dementia itself rather than the person being difficult. The bad news is they can't control it. The good news is, as their caregiver, there are things that you can do to lessen the disruption that some of these symptoms can cause. Again, we go back to, he's not giving you a hard time, he's having a hard time. Next slide, please. What dementia does not change is their emotional needs. Their need to be needed, to love and to be loved. They need to have an opportunity to care for someone or something, to have their self-esteem respected, to make choices, and they need to feel like they're being useful and that their existence matters. They are the same as the emotional needs that you or I all have. These needs do not change throughout their lives, even when you're living with dementia. What does change is they need you to understand these needs and be able to take care of them emotionally and help them meet these needs. Often, well-meaning caregivers can hurt the feelings and self-esteem of those that they're caring for without even realizing it. If someone is constantly pointing out, you get things wrong, what does that do for your self-esteem? If you're trying to help and someone says, just sit down, Mom, I'll do it, how can you feel useful? Next slide, please. So with all the changes in how they process the world and how it affects their emotions and ability to care for themselves and solve problems, what do you as a caregiver do? Here's something you can do differently today. Stop focusing on the facts and start focusing on the feelings, and pay a lot of attention to them. In dementia, a key point and one of the most important is how you make them feel when you're talking to them. You may have heard Maya Angelou's quote, "People will forget what you've said, and people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel." This is particularly true in dementia. Facts will be forgotten, feelings will not. So make sure the feelings they remember from you are good ones. In real life, stop focusing on convincing them that they need a shower, or that Mom is dead, or that pointing out where they're forgetting things or mixing up facts. This will happen. It's not their fault. They're doing the best they can with a brain that's not working well anymore. All of that does not help take care of their emotional needs. And the real risk is, if you're always correcting them or bossing them around, they will forget the details, but they will remember that you're a person that makes them mad. And when it comes time for care, do you think they will want to work with you? Instead of trying to convince them they need a shower, because you'll lose, work on how do you make the thought of the shower their idea? Or how do you make the shower a pleasant experience, one that they look forward to? That's what we mean about focusing on emotions and making them feel good. We can't change the fact that they have dementia and they will forget things, but you can take care of their emotional needs by not pointing out every fact they got wrong. What can change here is your approach, and we can create a more dementia-friendly house around them. And when that happens, they'll do better. And this will also make you feel better. And that's what we're going to spend a lot of time talking about in the next several weeks. But for now, focus on their feelings, stop arguing, stop correcting or reasoning with them. That's your homework for tonight. Now, Amy's going to tell you why it's so important to focus on you, the caregiver. Thank you.
Thank you. So we are going to switch and talk a little bit about your role as a caregiver. Next slide, please. And I am here to tell you, actually, you may have been waiting your whole life to hear this, but this actually is all about you. And so what actually I mean when I say that is what makes dementia different than any other disease is, as it progresses, how your family member does depends completely on how you are doing. If you're doing well and you feel confident and like you've got this, they will do well. If you feel like you are floundering and failing, the whole ship will go down. And so what this means is you are very much worth supporting. And the person that you are caring for actually needs you to do well and feel supported. Dementia is really different than every other disease. I mean, when you think about it, becoming a caregiver doesn't happen overnight in this disease. So maybe in the beginning, it's often something that sneaks up on you over time. Maybe you're just running to get a few groceries for them or some help paying bills. And later on, you find yourself cleaning your house and their house. And then all of a sudden, they need some help with bathing or using the bathroom. And suddenly you feel the role kind of shifting from being a husband or a wife or a son or a daughter to this notion of being a caregiver, and that feels really different. And finally, we also know, as Stacy said earlier, life doesn't prepare anyone for this role. We work with doctors who are now caregivers and nurses who are now caregivers who say, I've cared for patients in my practice for 40 years, and now taking care of my wife with dementia is the hardest thing I've ever done. So it is hard across the board universally for everybody. But the really good news is that there are skills that can be learned. And when you learn them and you practice them, it does make things better. And so we're here to teach you those skills over the next several weeks. Next slide, please. So let's talk about how to be a good dementia family caregiver. So the first thing that is really important is to learn as much as you can about dementia. So learn about how it affects them, what you can expect as it progresses, and how you can help, and that means what is helpful and what you might be doing that actually isn't helpful to them. And this is great news. I mean, you had a choice in how you were going to spend this evening, and you chose to spend it by coming here and starting to learn about the disease. So we'll give you a check mark for that one. So number 2 is take care of yourself physically. This means keep your doctor's appointments, try to eat well, try to get some exercise and some rest as much as you can. Because we know that your staying healthy helps you to be a better caregiver. And we also know that this is really hard because of the stress associated with being a family caregiver to somebody with dementia. And so that has to be an area of focus too, and that is taking care of yourself emotionally and taking steps to manage your stress. And then number 4 feeds right into number 3, find ways to take a regular break. This is really a key ingredient in stress management. Next slide, please. So now we'll spend a little bit of time talking about stress and the warning signs that maybe your body's saying, things are starting to get pretty stressful around here. And there's different ways that stress impacts the body. So for some people, it's primarily emotional. Maybe you're feeling anxious or just kind of sadder than usual, or maybe depressed. Maybe you don't have interest in the things that you used to enjoy. Maybe you feel like you're just kind of angry or grouchy. Maybe you're snapping at others, and that's not you typically, or the you that you want to be. Maybe you're feeling guilty or just kind of feeling overwhelmed with life and responsibility. Some people are really affected mentally. When they are stressed, they really have trouble either making decisions or just, focusing on whatever the task at hand is. Some people, stress really affects them socially, and they get to feeling really lonely or isolated from other people. And it can also cause relationship troubles. I mean, maybe you're having more arguments with those close to you, not because you're having problems with them, but really because of this underlying feeling of stress that you have. And then some people actually experience stress with physical changes to their body. So changes in your sleep, either not being able to sleep, maybe your mind is racing at night, or maybe you want to sleep all the time, or you're tired all the time, or just feeling kind of exhausted. People have appetite changes, either they can't eat, or maybe they are eating as a coping mechanism. And then other people have health problems that are maybe flaring up. So even things like back pain or headaches or neck pain can be a sign of stress. So these are all signs that you need to maybe take some action to lower your stress level. So pay attention to these signs and signals. It's your body that's really trying to tell you something. Next slide, please. So these signs are usually a signal that your tank is starting to get low and maybe sputter out a bit. So when you think of our cars, we don't expect our cars to run on empty. And ultimately, you as a caregiver can't run on empty either. You need to do things to be able to fill your own tank. This isn't selfish. It's practical and needed for your own well-being, and also for your family members, so that you can continue to provide good care to them. We do know in dementia that ultimately your mood as the caregiver impacts their mood as the person with dementia. So, you need to do this for you and ultimately for them also. Next slide, please. And so when we talk about it being important to take a break, what do we mean by that? So just to really be kind of simple about it, there's kind of two different breaks that you can take, and both are important and both are different. So the first kind is taking a quick break in the moment. And the second is a longer, more intentional physical break from caregiving. And we'll talk about both of those. Next slide. So quick breaks in the moment are little bursts of joy that you can add into your day right here, right where you are right now. So while this is not a physical break from caregiving, these sort of just for fun moments can help your body release endorphins, or your happy hormones, that can make you feel better by decreasing your stress hormones. So to kind of like reset your brain right there in the moment. So quick breaks in the moment are just that. They're quick, and they don't involve a lot of really or any planning. So, these can be things like giving a good friend a call, or watching a funny video. We've all heard laughter is the best medicine. It definitely is. Listen to music, sing if you're so inspired, or take a break and pray or meditate. You could do some stretching or deep breathing. There are many, many little 1-minute videos out on YouTube that teach you kind of the how-tos of deep breathing. And if you've never tried it before, it actually can be very, very powerful in kind of resetting your mind, and to think about something else for a moment. That really can help to kind of rebalance you. Even, stepping outside for some fresh whether it be hot air or, this weather, stepping outside for a burst of cold air kind of takes your brain to a different place. Or even, having someone else cook, call out, call Uber Eats or go through a drive-through just to give yourself a pass. Take one thing off of your list for the day. So these little quick breaks or quick moments of joy are different for everybody, depending on what brings you joy. And so that's the first question to answer, is what brings you joy? And then the second question for you to think about is, how can you add a few of these things into your everyday? Next slide, please. And so these quick breaks are great, and they can really help you to survive on stressful days, but it is also critical to find a way to get a longer physical break from caregiving. And this physical break is all about finding your time to escape, to be mentally and physically off duty. This is much different than running out for a half an hour and worrying that something can happen while you're gone. It's a totally different feeling. And obviously, this kind of break does take some planning ahead, but it is worth it. And this is actually, having a regular break as a caregiver is one of the healthiest habits that you can build for yourself in this journey. If you don't have this habit as part of your life yet, it can be helpful to get motivated by asking yourself the question, what would I do today if I could get a physical break from caregiving? Would you go to lunch with friends? Would you head straight to Target? Would you take a walk, or maybe get your hair or nails done, read a book, or maybe even just lay across your bed and take a nap in the afternoon? Again, like the quick moments of joy, how people choose to spend their caregiving breaks completely depends on what it is that you like to do when you get a break. And ultimately, it's not even about what you're doing, but it's about the fact that you are getting time off duty. So when you go back on duty, you are better equipped to handle that time with your loved one. Next slide, please. I wanted to share a few words of wisdom on getting a break from caregiving, because we hear a lot of caregivers that really do wrestle with this. And so truly, number one, the best time to work on building the habit of getting a regular break is before you feel like you are stressed and burned out. It is never too soon to build this habit. And it's never too late to build the habit either. So if you're a little further along and the stress is pretty high, it's a very worthy thing to do to really give some thought as to how you can get a regular break. Number two, do some planning ahead for this. It's good for you because it gives you something to look forward to. And if the people that you're asking to step in have some advance notice of when it is that you need them for, they'll probably be better able to help you out so you can step out. And third, please, please, please do not fall into the mental trap of thinking that you are being selfish by needing to get out of the house. If it's helpful, you can think about it as you're doing this for you and you're doing this for them. Again, most of the time, people with dementia will mirror your emotions. And if you are less stressed, they will be less stressed, and vice versa. And, on a side note, many times your family member would actually probably enjoy interacting with someone other than you once in a while. So it's a nice diversion for them also. And the next one is really important too. Don't wait for someone to ask you how they can help. Go first and ask people for what you need. Ask for help. This is not a sign of weakness. It's actually a sign of strength, and you taking steps to meet your needs for you and your loved one. And ultimately, if friends and family are not an option, seek out community resources that can help. There are such things as adult day programs. Think of others, maybe people from church you could ask, or in-home caregivers. So do give some thought over the next week or so. Who is one person that you could ask to help you, to step in, even for a few hours one time, so you could get out and get a break? Next slide, please. And I just wanted to give you kind of an important mantra or reminder that in all that you are dealing with, you cannot control what happens around you or to you, but as a caregiver, you can control how you respond to it. So know that I can't control everything. I can't fix it all. I can't cure their disease. I can't do everything or be everything to everyone. I can't change other people, and I can't please everyone. But I can control my attitude and how I respond. I can actively seek out what is best for my family member and for myself. I can ask for and accept help from other people. I can learn and apply new skills to make things at home better. And I can take time for me. And above all else, know that as a caregiver, you have a huge responsibility. And please know that you are doing the best that you can. Next slide, please. So we are almost ready to move into questions, but before we do that, I just wanted to give 3 reminders. So next Wednesday, we will be having our first coaching session, January 18th, from 7 in the morning until 5 p.m. Please do feel free to call in. Michelle, hoping you can put that number in the chat. It's 412-435-8950 to give you an opportunity to talk about what is happening specifically in your household. Number 2, do please consider registering and attending our next webinar in 2 weeks. It'll be on January 25th from 7 to 8. And it is called Communicating for More Success and Less Stress. And it is one of the very most important ones, so put it on your calendar. And number 3, in the next 2 weeks, like Stacy said, please do either complete the survey by clicking on the link in the chat. Maybe Michelle could put that survey link in the chat also, or send back the paper copy that you'll receive in the mail with your workbook. And make sure that you share your name if you'd like to be entered into the raffle for a gift card. And now I'm going to turn it back over to Michelle for questions and answers.
Thank you, Amy and Stacy. That was wonderful. That was a great presentation. You gave us so much knowledge. I will add those 2 things into the chat as we go through some of the questions. We do have a couple questions. Let me see. I want to double check the chat. The first question is sometimes having trouble finding words a sign of normal aging or a sign of dementia? That one is for you, Stacy.
Okay. That is typically often a sign of normal aging. You know, we all have this, even young people have this. And I've done a lot of reading about this area. And, you know, whenever you're searching for that word and you can't find it, it's okay to go ahead and Google, you know, what it is you're looking for. I know a lot of people say, oh, you know, if I can't think of it, you know, my brain is not going to be able to get the exercise that it needs, but that's not true. Go ahead, look up the Google, don't make yourself crazy, and just know that it's a very typical response. It's when it becomes more challenging and you just can't function in your daily life that it really becomes a factor of dementia.
Thank you. Thank
Sure.
you. We have one question for you, Amy. If a person living with dementia is crying and their mother died, Should I tell them that their mother died 40 years ago?
Yeah, so that's a really tough one and definitely something that a lot of people do experience. I mean, and the answer actually is probably don't tell them that their mother died 40 years ago. The answer, when you see them crying, what they need is your support and your reassurance and maybe a hug. Just
Yeah.
someone to be there with them in the sadness. I mean, there's a lot of things that happen in life that there's nothing that you can say or do to take away the sadness. And if they believe that their mother has just died and they are feeling that right now, just be there with them in the feeling.
Yes.
Resist the urge to tell them that that is not the reality. Go with
Yes.
it and join them in the reality.
Exactly. That's something I've learned also. You step into their reality. You don't want them to step into ours.
Yeah, we have actually met people in our work that have families who have gotten so distraught that their person is saying, well, you know, where's my mother, that they've actually put them in the car and driven them to the cemetery to see the tombstone, thinking that that will get through to their head. And the problem is, number one, that may cause them to grieve the loss of their mother right then and right there, as raw and as real as it was the first time that it happened, number one. And number two, they're going to forget, and you're going to have to go through that all again.
Oh, yeah. Exactly. Thank you. Thank you both for that input. One question we had is with them, Stacey, you had mentioned in your presentation about tunnel vision.
Yes.
When can you go a little bit more in depth what tunnel vision is and how a family member can detect if their loved one is having tunnel vision?
Yeah, that's Amy's showing you our demonstration.
Yeah.
One of the things that you can do if you know, in early dementia, you know, if you hold your hands up like this, you can see, you know, you really can't see anything peripheral. You can't see anything out here. You can just see what's right in front of you. And as the dementia progresses, it just shrinks down to just barely looking through binoculars.
Yeah.
That's all you see. So you might often see people looking down at the ground as they walk because they have to see what's right in front of them. And, you know, they're afraid that they're going to stumble, or they do stumble. They often, you know, can fall over things like that. And one of the things that we recommend, especially when you're trying to communicate with them and get their attention, don't talk to them from the side. Always come around to the front where you can be in front of them and they can see you, because, you know, it's very disorienting. They hear something here, but they can't focus on you because, you know, they can't look over there. Another thing that this will come into effect, you'll see we're going to do a presentation on safety in the home. And so we'll talk about some things that you can do to help with for them to be able to see the differences, both in their peripheral vision and, you know, what's right in front of them. Different ways that you can make it more obvious, you know, in color differences and contrasts, so that they're able to their depth perception won't be as bad of a factor in their vision problem.
Thank you.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you so much. We have a couple more questions. What was the next one? As a disease progresses, does the patient, the person with dementia, do they suffer? And Amy, I'll let you answer that.
Okay.
If you,
So some people do suffer. I find in our work that sometimes what makes a disease really hard is the people that suffer the most are the people that love and take care of that person. Just because, I mean, there's so much loss ahead of the actual loss of that human being that happens. But this is not to say that the individual with the disease doesn't suffer, but I would say some of the reasons why that person with the disease is suffering can be because the caregiver isn't kind of trained and skilled in the approaches needed to be able to support them. So, you know, when we were talking about the emotional needs of a person with dementia, needing to, even in my disease, I want to feel like I'm being helpful. I want to feel like I am loved and I am able to love and take care of things. I want to feel like, you know, what I say matters. And I have a caregiver who's constantly correcting me and telling me to sit there and don't help. And I mean, that caregivers unknowingly, I mean, caregivers are doing the best that they can with the information that they have, but caregivers can unknowingly really hurt that person in the process of caregiving.
That's great. I've learned from my experience working with dementia patients also, maybe having them do small tasks to help you instead of to make them have some purpose, because they still want to have some purpose also in their lives.
Everyone needs
Washcloths of maybe wiping the table, something to, even small tasks what they can do with their perception. We have a couple more questions. We did have a comment from one of our viewers, and just sending, telling how they've lost loved ones from dementia and how it feels to lose a loved one. They just want to put that comment out there. They understand and feel empathy for others. What was my last one? Okay. How can I avoid letting my anger and sadness about the person's behavior affect my ability to help them?
Yeah.
I'll leave that to either one of you to answer.
So sometimes in that very moment, if you feel like you're kind of unable to regain your composure, it's okay to say, I'll be right back. I need to go to the bathroom.
Yeah.
Go to the bathroom, shut the door, you know, just, you know, like scream into your sleeve, whatever you have to do for just a moment till you can put your game face back on and go back out there again. So that's one of the things that you can do in the moment. But with kind of the more chronic anger or sadness that goes along with the disease, I mean, a part of that, you know, that tool of real building in getting a regular break is one of the things that can help you be able to kind of alleviate some of those really strong feelings. It doesn't take the anger or the sad away, but maybe you come back in and feel a little bit more in control of your emotions.
I agree. I think this program that you're doing is so wonderful, because there's so many families out there trying to do the best they can with their care, with their loved ones, and learning to, like as you said, to take those breaks and realize it's okay to take those breaks, and learning with the emotions that they have, because this is their mother and their father, and with the disease process, they're not the same. They're not acting the same as their mother and father usually does. So it's a little bit harder, more challenging for an actual caregiver than maybe somebody like me as a healthcare provider, because we don't have that connection. So this is such a great needed education and coaching for all communities, and all inclusive for everybody.
It is something that touches us all at some
Yes,
point in life or another.
it definitely does. And I think that's it for our question and answer session. And I want to thank Stacy and Amy for your presentation. And I'm going to turn it over to one of our other moderators, Joanne Boyd.
Thank you, Michelle and Amy and Stacy, a wonderful presentation. My name is Joanne Boyd, as said, and I am the president-elect for Pittsburgh Black Nurses in Action. So on behalf of Pittsburgh Black Nurses in Action and Gateway Medical Society, we want to thank our panelists for this wonderful presentation, a wealth of information. I look forward to seeing the booklet. I hope all of you will return to take advantage of the question or the counseling sessions that are going to be offered next week, and then come back for the second session of the webinar. That information is in the chat, and you will be able to register for the second session with a separate flyer that will be sent out soon. So the way that you registered today for this session, you will get a new flyer because each session will have its own flyer. So I thank the audience for coming, whether you're on Facebook Live or participating here on this webinar. Thank you for taking time out of your evenings. I hope this was informational for you as it was for me. And we will hopefully see you at the next session. Thank you.